Hey, everybody, and welcome to Tears in Tool Talk, a podcast that's dedicated to celebrating women who are showing up from within their perfectly imperfect lives to share their magic with all of us. I am here today with a good friend of mine, Sylvia Becker-Hill. And Sylvia, I would love for you to tell our listeners just a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you, Gina, my dear. I'm so happy and excited to be here today with you. As you probably, beloved viewer, already hear, I'm from Germany. I'm in my early 50s and I moved around just before my 40th birthday with my husband, who is from New Zealand, and our two boys who were born in Germany to the United States. And since then, we moved first from 7 years in Michigan. Now we live here for 7-8 years in California, and we are considering to be global citizens, and that is an important framework to understand where I come from. So everything I do, I believe, and let me quickly grab, where did I put it? My beloved brain. Oops, here's my brain. Not here, my brain is here. I believe that we human beings, even though we consider each other to be individuals, like this is Gina Bell, I'm Sylvia Becker-Hill, but I believe through our beloved subconscious mind, we are constantly connected like a radio receiver with the subconsciousness of the collective, of the cultural background, the racial background, the religious background, and the gender background where we are coming from. And because of that, for me, everything I do is to heal the disconnect between all of that, because we all live, especially right now, with officially social distancing in a global pandemic where everyone is freaking out and is scared and pushing blame to other people in order to avoid to deal with their own horrible, challenged emotions and their own difficult inner states. The disconnect and the gap is even widening. So I'm in the business world for over 20 years as a top executive coach and corporate leadership trainer, and have reinvented myself more often than I can count, because when you move and or when you marry or you become a mother, all these life changes, especially for us women, they are always a trigger for a major makeover of oneself and of our business brands. So now, through the pandemic and the fact that I had some challenging outside circumstances, my husband lost his job last year before the pandemic, so unrelated. My father died last year, unrelated to COVID-19. Then the pandemic this spring, early year started. I lost most of my corporate clients because their budgets for coaching and training got frozen. So again, outer circumstances inspiring me to look for what's the opportunity here, how can I reinvent myself again, and I'm proud to say I did. I'm working now, and when this year is airing, I know we have already launched on the biggest business project so far of my life, and big regarding the amount of work and the global reach, because I'm now the host of the Juicy Live Leader Conference, which is right now already reaching, not fully knowing the social media outreach of our speakers, but just via email, just under 500,000, and probably with the social media outreach, around 1 million people around the world. And it's a conference where we focus on the evolution of leadership. Because when I look into the world, the pandemic functions in my eyes like a magnifying glass put on everything. So it's the magnifying glass is put on us to check in what's working in our life and what's not. And when I look into the world, what's working in the world and what not. And when you look into leadership, you see the world has changed and needs a different kind of leadership, but the leadership hasn't changed. Even worse, not everywhere, not with everyone, but the trend is that it's regressing because of the stress and the panic. So I'm very, very excited and feel honored to be a catalyst for conversations in between humans of all national backgrounds, racial, religious backgrounds, to have this conversation, how to evolve leadership so that we can heal the disconnect between all parts in ourselves, between each other, between nations, and solve the current, not only the current crisis, but the themes of the recent years, like climate crisis, water shortage, global immigration movements. I mean, we have a lot to do. So, beloved viewer, if you have not yet considered yourself a leader, you are here and talking with me. I look at everyone as a leader because I believe everyone has leadership potential. It just needs some education, some inspiration, and sometimes a loving kick in the butt. But yet I truly believe that. I believe we have to make a choice right now. Are we a victim of the circumstances, as tough they might be, or are we stepping into our leadership right now? And it's part of my life's purpose to invite you to do the latter.
Wow. Thank you, Sylvia. Yes, I think that's so incredibly important right now. And I love the idea of viewing everyone as leaders, because I think we all have a leader somewhere there in our heart. And I liked what you said about no matter what the circumstance or what you might be going through, just remembering that you have that in your heart.
Yes.
Which leads us to the, at the start of each podcast, we talk about the tears and Tulle moments, which are the good and the bad. And so I would love for you to share your tears and Tulle moment, which is your even when, especially then moment. That's what we're calling them these days. And just let our listeners and viewers know what that's about.
I remember when you invited me to be part of your beautiful movement last fall, it was just around the death of my father. So for me, it was very clear that the color black I had to wear to be part of your movement in that moment had to be in honor and the grief of my father. And from all the photos I sent you, even though most people didn't choose that as their number one, but for me, it's my number one tears and Tulle photo, where I'm holding literally the urn of my father with his ashes, being a black travel urn because I had to bring it over from Germany to here to California. And the tears and Tulle moment, which really literally changed my life, changed me forever, was I had to, because of the geographical distance, just for people who are not so good in geography, let me show you. So California, where I live, is here. He is here. So when I got in the morning via WhatsApp the message from the doctor, Sylvia, it was out of the blue. There was no indicators. My father was 86. There was no indicators, no disease, no pain, no hospital. So I get out of the blue, early morning, waking up, 7 a.m. Sylvia, come as quickly as possible. Your father is dying. So I had to get from the California countryside to LA, fly over the globe, and I got a ticket over to Warsaw, Poland, which is here in Europe, and had a stopover where I got during the stopover the message that he had died while I was over the Atlantic Ocean, and then flying to my hometown, Düsseldorf. And I ran into the situation of entering the house where I grew up, where my father was dead in his bed, and my mother in pure agony, absolute agony. And the next 48 hours are burned in my brain forever, because the agony of my mother was so big and so intense. It was the worst I've ever experienced in my life. It was so much more than my own grief or anything I've ever experienced or saw a human being being able to feel. And I'm an empath. It's hard or nearly impossible for me to shut myself completely off. And obviously these are the two people I love the most. There's my father dead and there's my mom in agony. And then because my mother is highly advanced suffering from advanced dementia, she didn't understand really what was going on. And she had gotten some medication to seduce her and keep her calm or make her help sleep. So she literally every few minutes, she forgot that my father had just died. And then she was becoming aware and saw him and realizing he's dead. And so she was literally going through the realization he's dead again and again and again. It was the most horrendous experience. And I couldn't leave her alone, even if I left for making tea for her or me in the other room in the kitchen for more than 3 minutes. She had a big panic attack. So what did I do? I spent literally the next 10 days living, because they both were in the same room, obviously, and the corpse of my dad was taken away the next day. There's a law, after 36 hours we have to do it. Long story. I was living in the bed of my father where he just had died, and to be with my mom. And now I come to my tears and Tulle moment, because I remember when my mom had these moments where, thanks also to her exhaustion and the medication, she fell asleep during the day. I was sitting in his deathbed looking at my mom, and there were these gorgeous sunbeams coming in from the garden through the window. And the whole room was lit up in this golden sunlight on my mother's, tear-stricken, harmed face. And I watched these patterns of the sunlight on the cloth of the bedding. And I know it sounds completely weird and I can't fully explain it, but I got in my brain in these states of pure bliss, of absolute pure bliss and happiness. And it was all there. It was death, the agony and grief of my mother, my own grief of losing my father, and the beauty of the universe and light. I mean, when sometimes the room, my parents, they had professionals coming to help them in the daily chores into the house, but still it was an old room with old stuff, and the higher shelves, they had like this thick layer of dust. So the sunlight was playing with these dust particles, which then started to look like little sparkly rainbow sprinkles from fairies. So here I was sitting completely exhausted from jet lag, having slept in 2-3 days, managing my mom and my own grief, and feeling blissful, feeling grateful, feeling in awe of life and what life offers us. So for me, forever, and I love that you came when I came back to California with your invitation, because of your movement, I was capturing this whole thing in writing and in photos. And that helped me to honor it and to never, ever, ever forget it. And for me, the gift of this Tears and Tulle movement is I feel now unbreakable and unstoppable. I mean, for me, it's like, hello, da, when I can feel bliss on sitting and living for 10 days nonstop, 24 hours in the deathbed of my father, caring for my in agony mother. What bigger challenge do you want to throw in my lap that I would not be willing to say, hell yeah, bring it on? I'm now unbreakable and unstoppable. And that's the gift for me of that Tears and Tulle moment.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for, first of all, sharing your vulnerability and your heart. I just was suddenly transported to that moment in time with you and the dust particles and the rainbow and this connection with your parents. And it's just beautiful, Sylvia. It's absolutely beautiful. And I think that it really shows the tears and Tulle of life and how they really are so interconnected. And I'm just so grateful that we were able to connect while all of that was happening, and you were able to share your story with so many of us online, and then today getting to interview you and talk about that a little bit more just feels like a real treat, a real gift to me. So thank you so much again for being here. For anybody who's just joining us for the first time today, I like
we are training the tears part of the Tears and Tulle.
Exactly, this whole Tears and Tulle thing. So for anyone who's just joining us, The Tears in Tulle movement follows a rainbow tulle skirt to the homes of 52 women in 52 weeks across the United States and Canada, Sylvia being one of those women. And each woman shares their tears in tulle moments, pairing the rainbow skirt with something black to represent her ability to show up and reconnect in that space. And so I cannot wait to hear more about your experience when the skirt did arrive at your home. Your photos, so many people reached out to me and they said, oh my gosh, she's telling a story. She's invited us into her life. And you really did. I mean, right down to the matching of socks and, your husband, Peter, being a part of some of your photos, and you're on the beach and, it's a holiday and you're holding the urn, and there were so many glimpses into your life. I would love to hear, from the moment that skirt showed up, what you were feeling and your experience creating those images and writing about what each of them meant.
Well, first of all, just the anticipation to know, oh my gosh, there will be a package coming, a box with this gigantic skirt. And I knew the skirt from the time when we both have met, from the documentary we both were superstars on. So I knew it's a huge skirt, and I had no imagination, how will that be packed? How can this even travel? So there was this whole anticipation of a bit of a magical journey of this crazy big skirt descending onto my home, like these big, they have here in California, these huge tents they put over houses to tent them with the termites. I was like, how is the skirt coming? Will it fall from the sky? How big will it be? So suddenly, finally, I had this big, it was like big square box, a big cube in front of our porch. So I think I started on Facebook showing oh my gosh, it had arrived, bang, the big box. And then I called my husband and my boys, and you have to cut this short because I could go on for hours, because for a few days that skirt dominated our family, because I had my in-laws from New Zealand staying with us for a few weeks, my two boys and my husband. So I had 5 people who got impacted by the skirt because they were all my team members to help me with this beautiful monstrous huge thing. So we unpacked it together in my office, and Peter was then my private photographer who had to shoot photos. Boys being boys, they were bored, they were disappointed when they saw it's a skirt, because they were excited too. They wanted to know what's in the big box, but they are not interested in rainbow skirts, sadly. Anyway, so for me, pulling out this huge skirt, and it was condensed, obviously, for travel reasons, in a plastic bag. And for me, that was a magic moment when it's so symbolic. I think we all are sometimes living as we are traveling through life in this plastic bag. It's one of those you put in a container, and there's this band, you zip it together. When you open that plastic bag and the zipper, and you start unfolding, it's a bit like a caterpillar breaking out of its cocoon. The skirt was just everywhere, and the rainbow colors, it was so beautiful. And me being still in the aftermath shock of my experience in Germany, and having now my in-laws over who needed my attention and care as well, because they are also of an advanced age, having this moment of joy. The skirt arriving was a bit, again, gosh, I'm trying again, I should have not put on mascara. It was a bit like the sunbeams coming in when I was sitting on my father's deathbed. The skirt, the rainbow colors bursting, exploding literally on my lap. It was this beautiful reminder that whatever I'm experiencing right now inside myself or around me, that life is change. Everything is changing constantly. And as a beautiful reminder also for you, beloved viewer, whatever you are going through right now with a pandemic, loss of loved ones, or loss of jobs, or loss of money, loss of your old way of living. There's so much grief right now collectively in society, in our bodies. I want to remind us all to remember this too will pass. This too will pass. This too will pass. And there's always room for rainbows. So, and from then, I had this focus. I made the decision. I want to focus on my dad. So the first big shooting was, because it was also before Christmas, front of Christmas tree, my little Nicholas head with the urn. But that was done so quickly, and I was so in love with the skirt. So I thought, this is not doing the skirt justice to make just one photo. And that's also not me. I'm a woman of being too much and being abundant, a bit like the skirt, hard to contain, even here on your podcast, my dear. And I never take it personal if you contain me. So I just started to have fun. I knew we had a schedule when it had to leave my house. So I kicked my husband, boys, and my in-laws a bit into their butt. Okay, no outings for the next 2-3 days. We have to do here some photo shooting. And thanks God they had fun. I mean, my in-laws thought I am a bit cuckoo. They're from New Zealand, so very different culture. But they learned over the last 20 years to accept that their son married a crazy woman. And especially my mother-in-law, she was then, as a woman, she was the one in all the photos, especially on the beach, who was pulling the skirt and making sure it didn't get stuck on little branches in the sand or didn't rip on rocks. Whereas, you know, my boys and my husband, they don't look for that, yeah. Or if the t-shirt was showing too much of my cleavage or something, you know, she had this woman's eye on making sure the skirt was protected and I looked good. My husband looked for technical issues, light, distance, da-di-da. So it was a real co-creation. And yes, the scene in our washing machine room, sorting the socks of all my male family members who are all wearing black socks, but of different brands and different kinds and sizes. That was one of the most fun scenes. And I felt, again here, our collectiveness. I felt so connected with all the mothers and wives around the world.
Yes. Oh, I think we can all relate to the disappearing socks, the matching of the socks, the wanting to just throw all the socks away at some point, you know. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, so it was just a beautiful, joyful experience for me. So it was a true gift. And I was a bit sad to send it off, but also happy because it stitched this beautiful journey and also a tribe of women. I mean, the women who just became before me and the woman just coming after me, having the skirt, for a while, we were chatting together on Facebook and exchanging our stories and experiences. So I love that the skirt is a symbol for a woman's movement. And as you know, I'm a women's empowerment mentor. I have my own women's empowerment school, and being part of your movement fits so well to my own life's purpose and my business and my love for women. So it was just a perfect creation. Thank you so much for thinking of me, that I could be part of it.
Oh no, thank you. And like you had mentioned, you were there the week that I wore the skirt for the first time, and just to have you be able to share in that light and love and energy, and so many of our girlfriends that were with us that week have participated or will participate. And so I just think that it just has this beautiful energy as it continues to travel. So I'm so glad that your love and your energy and your openness went into, you know, your experience with the skirt and really showed in your photos and in the stories that you told with each of your pictures. So Sylvia, I'm wondering, and I think I might know a few of these answers, but I'm wondering who in the world might be inspiring you right now in your life, who you might look to for inspiration. And I follow you on social media, and so I know that I see, gosh, so many beautiful women show up, especially on your Instagram account, and hearing their stories. But I'm wondering, who inspires Sylvia BeckerHill today?
Well, for me, the number one woman right now in the world, or number one leader inspiring me the most right now, is the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern. because
Yes.
the way she reacted a few months ago to the mass shooting in the mosque in New Zealand, in Christchurch, and also now the way she acted responsibly, answering the pandemic, and how she stays connected daily with her people, and her level of discernment and communication and transparency and realness. And I mean, I just love this woman. For me, she is the role model of the next phase of evolution in leadership, how I think all leaders need to strive to be. And following her, for me, is the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, and her just utter unshakable serenity. I mean, this woman for me is a magician. How she, I mean, this is my vision. I watch Angela Merkel on TV and I see this big whip, which is like magically invisible, and how she is whipping together all these male, sometimes arrogant European world leaders who have no clue, who don't have her brain. I mean, I'm in love with people, and especially women with amazing brains who are trained to think scientifically and are able to connect that with their hearts. And yet Jacinda Ardern and Angela Merkel are these incredible two leaders who show that and who express that. Jacinda Ardern's key skill for me is her communication skills. I mean, I could listen to her for hours, how she is able to talk about the toughest, most horrendous topics in a way where she discerns all the different options and makes her decision-making process transparent to her people in New Zealand. Is just astounding. And when you see the research about the trust level, how much people in New Zealand trust that woman, even if they maybe didn't elect her or didn't even like her because she was scandalous, because she got elected and then she gave birth to a baby just a few months being prime minister. She had the audacity to give birth to a baby and not hold it inside till her turn was over. No, and then she was not loved by everyone. But now, even though people who don't maybe agree with her political decisions, everyone trusts her. Oh my gosh, when was the last time in the United States we had a president everyone was trusting? I don't know if that ever existed. So I think, Jacinda Ardern, so for everyone here watching, if you have not looked her up or don't even know who she is, go to YouTube, listen to one of her speeches and start following her. Angela Merkel is not that inspiring. She's very German, dry, subdued. So her communication is not the role modeling, but what I like here is she's science-based in all her decisions, and she is honest about changing her mind. She's transparent. She starts sometimes going in front of the camera and saying, this is the tough decision we have to make. This is the problem. I thought we should do blah, 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 but my advisors and my political partners told me da, da, da. So I changed my mind. Hello, da. This is what we leaders need to be able to do, to be open-minded and listen to our advisors and be open to change our mind. We are not always right. Tell that the President of the United States.
There's so much synchronicity happening right now. I just spoke with a Tears and Tool trailblazer from New Zealand that was chatting with me. She'll be on a future podcast. And we were already off air, so you won't hear this part, but she was saying how blessed and how proud she is to live where she lives right now because of that female leadership. And I really had to agree with her. And it's so interesting that you're bringing it up after we went off the recording and she had mentioned it, but it seems to line up that, you know, that is really someone to watch and pay attention to, because I believe there's deep wisdom in how she's running things. So thank you for sharing that. I can't believe we're almost at time, Sylvia. I would love for you to tell our listeners and our viewers where they can find you online, and what new things you might have coming up that we can get excited about.
So the easiest way to connect with me is through Facebook. Sylvia Becker-Hill. According to Google, in my last research, there is no other Sylvia Becker-Hill on this whole planet, and also not on Facebook, so that should be easy to find me. I have a wonderful, wonderful women's group also on Facebook, Women Rising Global Hub, Women Rising Global Hub. And right now we are running our Juicy Life Leader Conference. It's online, it's completely free, free of sales. Everyone, it's a big love feast from the experts too. And let me show you all these books here, all the speakers. The ticket to get into my conference, they had to be authors of international bestsellers. So the age average is pretty high. I have some of the most amazing old fathers and mothers of the self-development and leadership industry. I have some big names like Gay Hendricks, the author of The Big Leap. I have Dr. Rick Hansen from The Buddha's Brain, Marisa Peer from I Am Enough. I mean, I'm very, very proud about the top-notch level of people. I have several partners, co-founding partners of the Ken Blanchard company. So it's juicylifeleader.com, juicylifeleader.com. It's free. You just put in your name and email address, and we have a conference launch for networking on Facebook as well. And we do live conference calls on Zoom where you can meet sometimes some of the speakers, where we do Q&A, because we live now in this virtual world, but my commitment is to make this conference as experiential and tangible for you, beloved viewer, so that you can meet leaders from around the world and the experts. And my goal is to start with this year, but to turn it into an ongoing conversation, starting conversational circles everywhere around the world, so that we all evolve into our leadership, so that we are evolved, awakened leaders having juicy lives. Because to summarize it, it sounds naive, but for me, it's the deepest wisdom when it comes to leadership. The best leaders are happy leaders. So for me, the first duty of a leader is to make sure you live a juicy, fulfilled life, because if you don't, you will bring your needs, which are unmet, into your leadership, and your employees, your clients, the world will suffer. All the neurotic narcissism we see in leadership right now out there, these are people who are hurting inside of themselves. People who hurt others. So your gift to the world is your own happiness. Your happiness is the biggest gift to the world, and sometimes it needs a gorgeous skirt. Or today I didn't have the skirt, but I thought I'd bring my little sun hat to have some fun here. For women with accessories, it's so easy to have some symbol of the happiness. So instead of the skirt, this is my hat, my rainbow hat.
Okay. I love it. And I love that you shared your joy and that you're continuing to spread your magic throughout the world. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Sylvia.
Absolutely, my dear. I love seeing you. I love your movement, and I'm always here to chat with you and your beloved tribe.
Oh, thank you. Love you so much.
Bye.
Bye.